Godzilla Minus One, the atomic breath of a dormant reptile, is the foot on the head of the drowning Imperial Japanese. That'll learn 'em good. Get on with the giant mech suits already.
Godzilla Minus One.
Your favorite Eldritch Horror here again to bring you a review of Godzilla. What a beautiful movie this was. And for a budget of only $15 million, it was an absolute slap in the face to all the Hollywood directors who couldn't hit water if they fell out a boat. Truly, we're left wondering where those hundreds of millions of dollars could possibly go. This was a beautiful demonstration of what a passionate and detail-oriented group of people can do with limited resources. We start with the story of a cowardly kamikaze pilot landing on an island for what he claims are repairs when really he just came to the conclusion that flying his plane into an American ship would be pointless. Understandable, really. We are introduced to a running theme of the movie, the shame inherent in Japanese culture. Despite the obvious reality of the war being unwinnable, the main character is still expected to fulfill his duty and die with honor. The movie's plot centers around the devastation of post-World War II Japan and the people picking up the pieces, often quite literally, as I love the fact that the citizens are living amongst the rubble of the devastated city, carving out small pockets of order among the chaos. The man finds a woman and an abandoned child, and the three of them scratch out a living until Japan's most uninvited neighbor comes calling. We first see Godzilla as what appears to be a child, not more than 30 feet tall. He attacks the repair island in the opening scenes of the movie and kills the engineers that the main character had just befriended. The main character then has another level of shame as he had the chance to shoot the adolescent Godzilla from the cockpit of his landed airplane, but froze out of fear. His guilt from the deaths of the engineers eats at him for the rest of the movie. Tokyo is in ruins following the firebombing campaigns of the US military, and the main character is only able to find work as a minesweeper, finding and exploding sea mines in the Tokyo Bay. During this time, Godzilla grows into the size we have become more accustomed to since the old school movies of the 1960s. Slow and plodding, swiping buildings with a single swing of his arm. But none of that acrobatic nonsense from the modern films. A slow and plodding Godzilla has always felt more believable to me. The Reptile King begins sinking American ships in the Pacific in response to US nuclear testing, and the US informs Japan that they cannot get involved in the hunt for Godzilla as this might anger the Russians. Not sure about that logic, but I won't look too deeply into it. I mean, hey, maybe the Russians might understand. God knows what they are dealing with in the endless frozen wasteland of Siberia. Godzilla might be considered a small monster by Russian standards. So the die is cast, and the disarmed and broken people of Japan must overcome this new and terrible threat. The first real encounter has the main character and his minesweeping crew releasing a sea mine into Godzilla's mouth and then shooting it. This successfully blows away a chunk of his face and dazes him for a moment. But this iteration of Godzilla seems to have a Wolverine-like healing factor, so he quickly recovers and takes out his rage on Tokyo. Here we see my favorite portrayal of the atomic breath in any Godzilla movie ever. It is a slow build-up and seems very mechanical, as the spines on his back protrude as he charges up, and then slam down into his spine as he fires. There is also a moment of a whirlwind vortex as the skyscraper-sized lizard consumes all the air around him before exhaling a blue laser that strikes, resulting in a literal nuclear blast. The scene showing the explosion is so well shot, it continues to leave me in disbelief at the low budget of the movie. Utter devastation, and Godzilla's willingness to use his atomic breath paired with his effectiveness instantly makes him an extinction-level threat. I mean, we have all seen the Japanese construction time-lapse videos, so let's be honest, Godzilla could just knock down their buildings all day like an angry toddler with a Jenga set, but if they are just rebuilt the next day, then it doesn't really mean much. A truly fantastic part of the movie is that it's genuinely hard to tell what is live action and what is CGI, and the writing is so good that it was never a struggle to suspend disbelief. Even the final plan they come up with, to sink Godzilla down to the bottom of a 1,500-meter trench, then raise him back up quickly in an attempt to destroy him using decompression, a simple and creative plan. In the end, we are given a satisfying conclusion, but an open-ended one that suggests we will see further Godzilla films in the years to come. And as long as this same studio and the team are at the helm, I will race to the cinema for their sequels. I give Godzilla Minus One a 21 out of 21. 7 out of 7 sacrifice cultists, an aesthetic that brought me right back to my youth, growing up watching the old school Godzilla movies with my granddad, and despite all these years, they captured that feeling perfectly. The cinematography was creative and beautiful the whole way through the film. 7 out of 7 screams of the damned. The characters were well written, and the dialogue was emotionally charged without ever being over the top. The acting was excellent and effortlessly drew me into the movie. I was on the edge of my seat for the high impact parts, and I was entirely entranced during the emotional parts. 7 out of 7 Tentacles of Cthulhu. The plot was exactly what it needed to be. The gravity of the war recently ending was never trivialized. The meager existence the characters are able to make for themselves really drove that point home. And the fact that every character in the movie had a tragic aura, everyone lost loved ones and family members, everyone watched their homes get obliterated. The writing was truly excellent and puts an absolute shame to the teams of Hollywood writers being paid 10 times more and producing 10 times less. I couldn't have been more engaged if my nipples were hooked up to a car battery. I give Godzilla Minus One my first ever perfect score. I couldn't give this a higher recommendation, even after tempering my reaction, considering my obviously positive bias. Growing up watching the old films was a big part of my childhood, but I am convinced this work stands on its own 2 feet. I give this my highest recommendation. Go see it immediately. That's all for today, mortals.